Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, Sixers, to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere and Cosmere-adjacent studies. This is episode 90, and today is August 16th, 2021. I'm Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my epic co-hosts, Amy and Jordan.
Oh, Excelsior. I knew that one was coming. Yes.
I was trying to decide if I was going to go for something different, and I was just like, no, this is the only chance I'm really going to get for this.
No, that's too far.
That's fitting. If only I could wear these and my headphones at the same time.
Indeed.
And for those audio-only people, I have a Loki's horns. It's great. His mid-sized ones, not the small Sylvie ones and not the giant ones, but the normal small ones.
It's so weird that we have to distinguish between those.
I know, but it's great.
Before we get started, we do want to remind our listeners that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means normally if there's something in the Cosmere that you haven't read, then you want to go read that and come back. Tonight, we're not talking about the Cosmere. We are talking about Steelheart, which is one of Brandon's YA and non-Cosmere books. Mm-hmm. It's the first of a trilogy of books called The Reckoners. And it's just... We decided to, we've been going into some pretty heavy lore stuff in recent episodes, and we decided to sort of take a break into something a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
And by lighter, we mean
post-apocalyptic,
young adults killing
eternal
people.
darkness.
In the prologue, we see
Chicago.
no less than about 24 people die, one of which is an infant, and and one is the guy's father right in front of him.
Oh my goodness! That poor baby.
That disturbed a lot of people. Mm-hmm. There was a lot. I've seen a lot of people who were just like, that bothered me, and so I know some people who gave up on the book after that point just because it was such a disturbing image to them.
Yeah.
Brandon doesn't focus in on it, but just the concept of it really gets a lot of people.
Well, and I mean, and David keeps looking at the lady and talking about what she's doing, and I'm like, I don't even want to think about it. What it would have been like if that had been me. That would have, all the trauma.
Yeah, we will get to that in a second, though. For those of our listeners who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you, you can actually interact with us live via chat as we record at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We record every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So come join us. We want to have you here. We love having people in the chat.
Even 25 minutes late.
We are starting a bit late tonight. We had technical difficulties on 2/3 of our computers. Amy is the pristine one.
Look at Amy just scoreboarding us here.
The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show will, of course, continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, and apparently tonight we need a lot of help, you can head over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Pledging $1 or $2 per episode really helps us out as we work to improve the show, trying to prevent such technical difficulties from happening. Patrons get immediate access to our Discord channel, where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere and the non-Cosmere and the stuff that has nothing to do with Brandon Sanderson whatsoever, just all sorts of geeky interests with other listeners. It's a great community. We have a lot of great discussions, and you'll get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. Mm-hmm. Guys, Steelheart.
Yes.
This was one I read, and I was just like, okay, Jordan, you need to read this.
Yeah, I actually, when it first came out, I didn't even know that it was a thing that he was working on.
Right. It was one, I'd heard the name, and I knew very little about it beyond that at that time. And then I remember hearing him say something about evil superheroes. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then I just sort of pushed it to the back of my head. And then it came out, and I was just, as I'm reading it, I'm just like, Jordan, you need this.
The answer was yes, I did. And on top of it, I do think this is probably his work that is the most ready. If the Hollywood's ready for it, I think it's the best one for him to go ahead and get a movie made of it.
I mean, just think Michael
has...
Bay. You know, like he could all the explosions, lots of explosions. Anyway, no, I'm not actually thinking Michael Bay, but continue.
I am.
Well, and he's optioned it out to a few studios before, and then the option expired, and he's gotten it back. And
no,
so this is one of the most likely for an adaptation.
I thought I read, maybe I was reading an out of date one. I thought I read that that the studio that had it still does.
I don't know.
I don't know at this point. So many of his have, like, they've optioned it and then let the option expire. Somebody else has picked it up. So I don't know exactly what the situation is for this one.
But yeah, I think it's the most ready.
It absolutely is. It's one. It's probably the most likely.
It seems the most mainstream. Like,
well, and it's complete.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few things that he has that is absolutely complete.
Yeah.
And we say complete after he just came out with a side story. But it is absolutely that, a side story.
Yeah.
It was complete when we started this.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not complete anymore, it's not our fault.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still haven't listened. Lux is only audio right now, right?
Correct.
It is only going to be audio. It was an audio original.
You have to have it read to you like a proper Voron man.
Actually, I think he may eventually do a print version of it.
I think I remember him saying that he wants to make a print eventually.
Now that you mention it, sorry, I retract what I said.
You're fine.
But for now, it is only audio. It's an Audible original.
I'll have to find that still.
Okay, so do y'all want to dig into the plot, or should we start talking about the characters? Because I really want to get into these characters a bit.
Let's do the characters,
Yeah.
and then do the plot. Since if we know all the characters, make sure everybody's up to date
It'll
with
probably
it, then they
just
can just
blend
follow
together
the plot
anyway.
easier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay, the series is called The Reckoners. The first book is Steelheart, followed by Firefight and Calamity.
Mm-hmm. And there's Mitosis, which is a short story.
Mitosis is a short story that happens between Steelheart and Firefight. Yes, and I actually listened to that this afternoon. It's like an hour long if you have the audio version, and it was free at one point. I don't know if it still is.
Yeah, I have to find that again.
But the series is called The Reckoners because there's a group of people who are fighting these superheroes. Actually, let's talk about the setting a little bit first.
Yeah.
So the basic premise is one day, suddenly, a bunch of people got superpowers.
But before that, there was an evil, like, red sun thing that came up for a little bit.
It was like at the same time.
Well, no, it was like a month or something apart.
I think it was a year. I think it was a year.
Was it a year? It was a year because there's a gap.
Was there?
Calamity's
there
up
was
there.
a gap. So the reason
and then people start getting powers.
It gets brought up in Lux.
Okay.
Is it in Lux?
Yeah.
Okay.
It shows up in the sky, and then
I must have forgotten this then.
It's a small detail.
Yeah, and then one day it shines brighter, and then everything goes well afterwards, and everything's great.
Yeah, exactly. The end. Okay, we're done with the no. So suddenly a bunch of people get superpowers. Yay!
This is great.
All of them are evil. Every single one, without exception.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this group of people called the Reckoners who are fighting back. There are freedom fighters. There are
revenge. Yeah.
The Revenge Society.
Yes. I'm sure there's a better word, but that word is not in my head right now.
They're the Reckoners, exactly. Because there's going to be a reckoning.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start off with our main character.
David.
So David is a lovable dork.
Yes. He says, he always says, I'm not a nerd. I'm not a nerd. And it's like, you're totally a nerd. And it's great.
Well, and the girl he really likes keeps calling him a nerd. And so he's just like, no,
I'm not a nerd.
I need to be awesome. So yeah, he's a gun enthusiast. He likes rifles. He doesn't like handguns.
He's like, he can't aim with them very well, is what he says. And like, And if you're that close, then you may as well hit them with the stock of your rifle anyway, is what he kind of feels like.
Right.
It's another one of Murphy's laws, which is your sidearm is what you use to fight your way to your long rifle, which you should never have put down in the first place, you idiot.
No, so David is obsessed with epics. Absolutely
yes.
obsessed.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
an epic killed his father. It's, it's tropish. It makes sense.
Yeah, very clear motivation.
Well, and I love the concept that his father was waiting for heroes to show up.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if all of these people are developing superpowers,
Then
there's got to be a hero somewhere.
Yeah, they have to come out.
They're on their way. They'll be here. We just have to make it until they get here. Mm-hmm. And he's just through the whole he's only on screen a few times, but he's absolutely 100% an optimist.
Oh yes.
He's in a horrible situation. They're essentially homeless.
They are homeless. Yeah, they've lost their house.
Yeah. Because he's there trying to...
And he's
I
a
think
widower. He's trying to
yeah.
get the mortgage. Or he's trying to get the
An
insurance
extension on the
company.
mortgage.
Yeah, because the house got partially destroyed by an epic, I thought.
Which was fun.
Yeah, very fun.
But it sets up a really interesting concept that shows up later on when Abraham shows up.
And he's a believer, too.
Abraham, I think, is a really just cool character because he's
love
very, very
Abraham.
pragmatic. Mm-hmm. But, and David's response when he finds out that Abraham is one of what they call the faithful, I believe.
Oh, is it the faithful or the believers? I can't remember. It was one of the two.
I think it's the faithful.
I think it's
be
the
that.
faithful
Yeah, that sounds right.
who believes. So, it makes...
He believes. And I love the fact that Abraham wears a pendant around his neck. That
Has an S or something on it, doesn't it?
it's a Superman symbol.
Is that what it is?
It's never explicitly stated, but it's a Superman
it's an
symbol.
S,
It talks
yeah.
about a stylized S.
On his planet, it means hope.
Right. Well, here it's an S.
But he's
But-
turned off by it right away. He's like, oh.
Well, he's like, oh, I always thought you were smart. And it's just like, no. I had preconceptions that have been evidenced, so I can't just immediately discard those. Because David, meanwhile, is absolutely jaded. His father was essentially a precursor to the faithful.
Yeah.
And look what it got him.
Bad things. Because that's what leads up to him getting killed as he's trying to help Steelheart.
Well, yeah.
And it backfires horribly.
And so Abraham is sort of he's the big guy of our 5-man band of 6 people, because David's the 6th Ranger.
Yeah. No, so if I may real quick, I love in the beginning here just how David starts it off where it's very melodramatic. Which I've
seen Steelheart bleed, and I will see him bleed again.
Yeah, just the fact that it turns out that is an in-universe story that he tells to the Reckoners, and the fact that he ends it like that. Most stories that would come across as incredibly over the top and just overdone, but because David is a teenager and because this has been his only focus his entire life, it actually really works.
Well, he's probably rehearsed it, because this is the speech that he gives to the Reckoners to say, hey, let me in. And so he's probably rehearsed this several times, which is why, we get that line from the prologue and then we get it again. You're just like, it's actually very well woven into the story.
Yeah.
I loved how they did that.
Because, again, Brandon doesn't say, I had rehearsed this speech in the book.
Yeah.
But the fact that we hear it and then we hear it again, it's just like, he's told this story before to us. And he's telling it the exact same way to them. This is a practiced story.
Oh, yes.
It's a really cool concept. Okay. Now, then there's Megan. So Megan is...
she's hardcore.
She is absolutely hardcore. She shows up and she, she actually has a guns akimbo moment and takes down Fortuity with it.
Except normally when it's guns akimbo, it's
bad.
It's two pistols or two. Yeah. And she has a pistol and a rifle.
And you're usually still trying to both sight them both down the sights. No, she has one shooting from the hip.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's it goes back to Brandon's whole you got to move people's sliders around to make them interesting, and he moves her competence slider way up because she's high on the social, she's high on the skills, and
and what we find out towards the end of the book, she herself is an epic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so...
But she gets kind of a raw deal with her powers. Because the amnesia every time she dies.
Well, it's kind of one of the reasons that it works in her favor, kind of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but that would be... I can see that being traumatic happening, like knowing 100%. That you died every time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's interesting on the reread with her because you definitely... Because she's obviously the one with the most to hide. Her reactions to things take on a completely different context than the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, particularly because of the way the powers work. Because, using the powers affects the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
And so suddenly she's there to infiltrate. She's our mole.
Yep.
And because she's our mole, she stops using her powers, which means she starts thinking normally again.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's sort of a very conflicted mole.
Yeah, because if she uses her powers, she does it usually to help save people on the team that she's trying to spy on, and that makes her less wanting to work with them, and but then she already so she just gets extra conflicted every time she does it.
I think it's really interesting the way that Brandon disguises this as she just does, it's a kid looking at the girl he likes who doesn't seem to like him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he doesn't recognize these telltale signs that something deeper is going on. Because he's already established as an only semi-reliable narrator. Because this, like I said, this is a kid who has a huge crush on this girl and she's not responding to him the way he wants. And so he's just like, well, why is it? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Very internalized.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not just a girl that he likes. This is a kid who is completely sheltered as well.
Yes.
Yeah, he does not have much experience with women or girls or anything because he
or
wasn't
anything
out there
at all.
Yeah, he's
right.
He knows guns. He knows epics. That's about it.
He's just been so obsessed. He even says to her, when she's unconscious, he's just like, thank you for making me feel something other than this hate that I've felt towards the epics for so long, since his father died.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's just completely out of his depth.
Oh yeah,
which makes it fun. But it's a really interesting way of disguising that in the whole surprising but inevitable fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has to disguise that in Megan, and then he also just has to disguise that in Prof.
Yes.
Because there are a couple times where it comes out in Prof as well.
But with Prof, David kind of interprets it, at least the first time, as in he had to come and save my butt, so he's mad at me for that, and he's just
I messed up.
He's the
big boss,
and he's angry that he had to do all this stuff because I messed up, and so it's easier to play it off that way the first time it happens.
Well, and again, with both of these characters, they're people that he idolizes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, again, internalizes their reactions to him as something, and so when they're responding to the epic powers, he thinks, oh no, I messed up. I ticked them off.
Mm-hmm.
And really, with Prof and Megan, they're both fighting the rage, the hate, the evil.
Evil that is there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just classic Brandon as far as he comes up with this insanely unique concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Prof. Prof is a cool character.
I always picture him wrong in my head. I'm always picturing like Doc Brown from Back to the Future, and that's not what he looks like. But that's my brain always goes there. I'm like, that's what he looks like, isn't it? And
he's wearing a lab coat and goggles, and so
my brain goes there.
It's a fair jump. Mm-hmm. Although he's wearing a lab coat, but it's dyed black, and he's just like, okay, I don't know why, but that's really cool.
It just makes me think of Dr. Horrible.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a black lab coat is 2 steps away from a trench coat.
A lab coat?
Yes.
No. Just no.
Let's make lab coat a thing, people.
It reminds me of Dr. Horrible, and it's great. With his red coat.
Wait, this is also probably the best one adapted in musical form. So if we can get that on.
Wow. We'll put that on the docket. We'll have.
Oh dear.
We'll have Dr. Phaedrus's sing-along blog.
Oh my goodness.
No, but anyway. Sorry. So.
Did you?
But he's got this grizzled, he's this grizzled, old, rugged, freedom fighter type character. Mm-hmm. And then we find out later, and he's just like, what was he before? Was he like an R&D development? What did he do? And he's just like, I was a middle school science teacher.
Which is actually one of the greatest tells the fact that he's an epic. Because
he shouldn't know these things.
Yeah, he shouldn't know these things. It's like, okay, how does a 5th grade school teacher have all this tech? The answer, it's not tech.
But it also works in a YA superhero concept. It's just like, oh, he's just a genius. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, no, it's actually
his powers.
Well, and the concept of gifting, it's introduced early enough that you could theoretically figure this out, but not so early that that's your immediate leap.
Yeah.
It's very similar, I think, to Vin's earrings as far as that goes, where if you know what to look for, it's immediate. You know exactly what's going on, and it's you know what it is? It's very much did you see the gorilla walking past? Because when you're told to just focus on, if you have never seen it,
for our listeners, explain the video.
It's a video where it's like count the number of times the red team makes a pass, and so there's a red team, there's a blue team, and they're passing basketballs all around, and you're sitting here carrying around. It's like, did you guess 17? Excellent. But did you see the gorilla or the bear walking through the middle of the playground?
It was a gorilla, I think.
I don't know. It's either a gorilla or a bear. The point is,
the large creature.
It's a man in a gorilla or a bear suit. I don't know which. And because you were sitting there focused so much on counting, there's a dude in a gorilla or a bear suit that just walks right through the middle of the entire scene. And because you're not looking for it, because you're so focused on everything else, they were able to hide a guy in a gorilla suit a bearilla. Yes, a guy in a gorilla suit, just going through, and you're just like, how did I miss that? I really feel like peripheral vision. I should have been like, oh yes, that's there, because that stands out, but it's not. And that's how this whole shell game he plays works early in these books, is he can tell us really obvious stuff without alerting anything, because we don't know what we're looking for.
Yeah, it's sort of like the bottle episode of Community. I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched it and wants to, because it's absolutely worth watching. But it's about a missing pin, and if you're paying attention at the very beginning of the episode, you see what happens to the pin. But it's a blink and you'll miss it moment, and if you don't know to look for it, you'll never see it. But yeah, it's just... it's interesting the way he set it up so that there are all these tells. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of moments where you look and you're like, oh, there it is. Oh, it's there too. Oh, it's there too.
And with Prof, they're telling David about the tensors, and they're like, oh, well, Megan can't use them either. Or things like that. And it's like, and Prof just won't.
And it's presented in a way that it's like, it's okay if you're having trouble using them. You're not the only one. Megan, who again, you see as this, have on this enormous pedestal, she can't do it. He's like, oh, if she can't do it,
she's hyper competent, but it's okay. She can't do that one thing, so it's all right if you can't.
And then he starts getting good at it.
Yeah.
And she can't do it. And it's sort of okay, she's so much better at me and other things, but at least I can use the tensors.
Mm-hmm. I've got that, and he refines it more towards the end too.
The other thing I want to say about Prof is unexpectedly my absolute favorite voice acted Brandon character.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of who does Steelheart for him.
McLeod Andrews, I think is his name.
I don't know. Just the gruff, the gruff version of him that he does.
Well, the voice actor, like the narrator for the Reckoner's books, is phenomenal.
Yeah, but
he's one of the best voice actors I've heard.
But the one he does for Prof just. It sticks just right in my soul. It is the first time I heard his voice. I'm just like, I am all on board with whoever this is.
I will follow you to the ends of the earth and back.
This is going to be just fine. Funny enough, when I first heard Tia, I don't think I'm going to like this character. And then I found out she was addicted to soda. And I'm just like, maybe I relate more to her than I realize.
I appreciate that Brandon didn't use any brand names. Mm-hmm. Just cola. It's just like, because I know so many people who are addicted to Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi or whatever, but it would have taken you a little bit out of the world.
Yeah, it definitely would have. But I like to think that she's addicted to Diet Dr. Pepper.
That's not cola, though.
It tastes more, though, like regular Dr. Pepper. And I just think the 23 flavors really add
Jordan,
something.
we're not getting paid for this. Stop.
Not with your attitude. We need Dr. Pepper to just listen to this and realize that
I'm not going to be much help that way either.
No, but talking about voice actors, though, let's go to Cody. So first off, thing about Cody, I was able to use this character to sell this series to my nephew, Cody. And so, like, he was about 12 years old, and I gave him the first book, and I told him, I was like, there's a character named Cody in here. He's like, oh, that's cool. And halfway through the book, he's begging his mom to take him to the store to buy the second one, and the third one came out, like, a week after that. I'm just like, yes.
Like, Cody almost makes me think
He's
of
hooked.
Team Fortress 2, the sniper in there, a little bit. And I think it's just like him. He does a Scottish accent more than anything, but but it's just fun. But he also
he has a Southern accent.
Is it Southern?
Yeah, he has a Southern.
Oh, for Cody, absolutely Southern accent.
Okay, because
he has
but he talks about being Scottish. That's right.
And that's why everyone's just like, what are you doing? I'll be real.
I love this concept.
I hate this concept, to be honest. Literally, everything about Cody's sense of humor has me rolling except for the Scottish stuff.
I love the idea of this guy who's got a clear Southern drawl, but who is obsessed with his Scottish heritage.
My favorite joke of the book is when they're sitting, like, they're going through David's notes the first time, and Cody sort of got bored, and he's just sat down. He's like, Abraham, ask me why it is such a tragedy for young David here to have spent so much time focusing on his notes. And Abraham doesn't even look up, and Abraham's just like, why is it such a tragedy that he always looks at his books? That is such a cogent question. I am glad you asked. It busted me up when I listened to that the first time.
You could tell that Abraham's been put through this.
Well, Abraham does nothing to ever dissuade Cody. It's clear he's very much amused by it.
Well, it's Ham and Breeze.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the same sort of concept of Ham has all these philosophical questions, and Breeze is just like, knock it up. Stop trying to make me think of moral quandaries. I just want to live my indulgent life.
Let me do my thing.
No, they just do it so, because it's a little more antagonistic with Ham and Breeze. I feel like with Abraham, it's just Cody knows, like, Abraham will totally humor me every single time. When everyone else is tired of me, I can do this with Abraham, and he'll just go along with it.
Abraham is a wall that is immovable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, I can bounce anything off of him.
Well, he's just he's got such a good like attitude about him.
Yeah.
Like he's very patient, he's very understanding, and he's very idealistic without being naive.
He's the lovable giant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Cody.
No, if it weren't for the fact they explicitly say he's black, I would have imagined Andre the Giant for the character.
He's a giant Frenchman. Of course you would. Now, is he French or French Canadian?
French
Canadian.
He's Quebecois.
Yeah.
I think maybe he's just French. I thought they said he's from Quebec, but I could be wrong.
I remember French Canadian. I don't remember which
is
province, but I remember French Canadian. I won't try and slaughter French.
But yeah, so those are the Reckoners. These are the people who are working to bring down the epics. Mm-hmm. So David, he's heard of these people, and he's just like, okay, I need to be part of them because they're actually doing what I want to do.
And he's studied them, like he's followed what they've managed to do in other places, and like can even look ahead and guess what they would have done.
Yeah, that's the thing that really impresses them. Actually, is
they're like,
they're just like, how did you know we'd be here? And he's like, well, and he lists it off, and they're just like, well, shoot, are we that predictable? He's like, nobody other than me would have cared.
Yeah,
but
and he guesses where they would have gone next. They're like, well, that means we need to change it because that means other people could guess it.
And then they find out that he left his notes back at the apartment. And it's just like, what did you do?
Well, and this is another thing where they do a good job of because if he jumps in and they immediately accept him, it's too easy and it doesn't make sense for the secret organization. So he impresses them because he's able to guess where they were, what they're doing, where they were going next, and it makes
helps.
and it makes them realize that okay, we at least need to hear him out because he does know this stuff. However, he still botches several things about it and does it in such a way that he's still useful, but he's not, he doesn't become a Mary Sue style character that can just do everything amazing.
Right. No, he's unreliable to accomplish what you set him out to do, but he's reliable to pull a success out of a potential tragedy.
Well, it's a lot of his improvisations, like even the improvisation, when it works, and there's a but. So like the improvisation at the arms dealer, he solves the problem by selling Abraham's gun.
But it's a brilliant idea.
Yes.
It is very convenient that the gun fits in the exact slot that the Gauss gun was in. But
yeah, and he manages to get even more intel out of it too. He finds out that Night Wielder is vulnerable to UV light.
Yeah, well, and on top of it, because he sticks around and he's listening, he finds out that they're looking for forensic tools, and that they're looking for an epic. So it lets him know that the false trail they're leading is working.
Yeah.
yeah,
No, but I really loved that scene in particular because it did a great job of sort of showing the dual-edged sword that the epics have with their weaknesses, where they don't want to give things away. And Night Wielder, he knows this thing has happened, but if I slaughter him, everyone else who knows what happened.
It's like, yeah.
Well, I also know, so I'll have to kill all my assistants. I'll have to kill this arms dealer. Do I want to do? No, I'll just do this. And it makes Night Wielder also just feel terrifying.
Oh, horrifying.
Well, just the fact that he says nothing, and when he speaks, it's just what's missing in that slot. And it's just showing that he's observant too. He's not. He's not stupid muscle.
How do you picture Night Wielder? Because I think I visualize him completely wrong, but the vision I have of him is absolutely terrifying.
I kind of think like a Matrix type coats, like those big long leather jackets, and like.
I think they said it was a business suit, didn't they?
That's the thing. I picture Nightcrawler in a pinstripe suit.
See, and so...
Like, I don't know.
And transparent.
Yeah. So the way I imagine him, I don't know why, for those who watched Heroes, Ondo, the character from Heroes, not Hero, but his friend Ondo.
His friend, yeah.
Yeah, I always pictured Ondo, but, you know,
The
evil.
Burst.
I could see that. You know, I actually randomly side thing. I saw him in an airport. I didn't bug him. I just saw him from a distance and was like, "Oh, that's so cool." I saw that he's a real person. I knew he was real, but like he's right there.
But now I know he's real.
Now I know he's real because he's right there.
Now he exists in your world.
I know.
And not
So
just...
that was
no, so that's...
random side thing.
Because they sort of said he was thin... I don't know why. I think it's because it's a superhero universe, and so I went to Asian people in the superhero universe.
I did the same thing.
Ondo.
I did Nightcrawler just because Night Wielder. I keep thinking the darkness, and so I thought that bluish, tinge, but in a pinstripe suit and kind of with a fedora. That's just sort of how he appears in my mind.
But the thing is, they do bring up that Prohibition era fashion is coming back into style in Newcago, and I love that.
Yeah,
because I want to just imagine the Reckoners dressed up like they're like mob malls on their as they're trying to blend in.
Well, honestly, when Megan first shows up, they're coming out of the theater. That's kind of the way I picture her. Is she's there as this mobster's.
Well, and it's
girl.
Well, and she's totally playing up the noir femme fatale thing.
Oh, yes.
Where she's using her beauty to get close to the target, and then once there, then she can manipulate the situation, and it would have worked too if it hadn't been for you meddling secondary superpowers.
Which is really, really fast.
And apparently can jump over cars.
Yeah. But
Well,
they get
so-
him.
I just love that. She says it's stupid when he comes up with the checkmate idea, and then she pulls it off. She's like, "I can't believe that worked." Just
It's like,
But at the same time, again,
but David's also
who knows if that would work for anyone normal? Like, who knows what sort of secondary powers, ability she has as an. When I say secondary, I'm not talking about actual abilities, but just sort of
extra.
a little bit better.
Well, at the very minimum, she's a crack shot. And so she's like, "I can't believe that worked." And David at that moment's like, "I can't believe that worked because of what she's wielding." And he's just like, "How did you do that?" Like, sure, I'm impressed that we could. My theory was correct, whatever. But this makes no sense that you could have done this.
Mm-hmm.
And so both were very impressed with each other at that moment.
Yeah.
But for very different reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about, we've talked about Night Wielder. Let's back up and talk about Team Steelheart. Well, starting with the big man himself.
Yeah.
First time he shows up, he's wearing just like black slacks, black t-shirt, and a cape.
A silver cape.
A silver cape. And he descends. And honestly, I hadn't read ahead what the story was about. I hadn't gotten all of them are evil. And so I was completely pulled in by David's father saying, "Oh, there's a hero."
Mm-hmm.
And so he shows up, and I'm just like, he looks like a hero.
Oh, yeah.
He, just this clean cut, buff guy. You're just like, oh, this is our Superman. Mm-hmm. And then he's bad. It actually hit me. Like, a lot of people were probably sold on this series by the concept of superheroes, but all of them are evil. I was just like, oh, Brandon did a superhero book with supervillains in it. Mm-hmm. And so when he started, just talking the way he did, I was just like, oh, no.
Yeah, like his first line is something like, "The city's, they're mine." Like not even like they're mine to protect, but it's like, but they're my little things.
They belong to me.
They belong to me. Yeah, it was just kind of like, oh, yeah, that's, he doesn't see them as people.
He doesn't see anyone as people.
Yeah.
This is also where it shows that this will draw a lot of comparisons, I think, to people who know to My Hero Academia, in that there's these superpowers, but the superpowers aren't like most comic book superpowers. There's some weird ones out there. Mm-hmm. And Steelheart having steel transversion or whatever it's called. I can't remember the actual power. Where he can
transversion.
Is it transversion? Okay.
Transversion.
And then there's however, transference is also how you is gifting.
Is that?
That's gifting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's transversion. But just what a weird power to throw in. And the fact that this whole, like, talk about setting up a scene that just is unique. The concept of he turns all of Chicago to steel, including part of Lake Michigan. And he sets up and he sets up his entire base on what was Lake Michigan. And it sets this very unique tone. And it's like, oh, here's this playground that's nice, and it's except literally everything is steel, so it's not really that nice.
The blades of grass are deadly.
It's an interesting idea because using Chicago, it's a very familiar landscape to a lot of people. So he can pull from that familiarity, but with the great transversion, it's familiar, but it's wrong. And it can make you very uneasy.
Yeah.
Well, it has some very interesting implications as to, what changes when everything suddenly turned to steel. It's like, all your electronics broken. You got to restart.
Right.
And you just start going through, and then you remove the day-night cycle.
Yeah. It's just, it sort of reminds me of Horizon Zero Dawn, which takes place thousands of years in the future. And so you see these ruins of modern cities, including a ruined stadium. So we've got the stadium there, and then we've got the big confrontation at the end of the book.
But let's be real, having a battle anywhere but Soldier Field just seems so just less cool. The Battle of Soldier Field just sounds perfect.
Now when it comes to some of Brandon's renaming of things in modern world, like you all have already heard my rant about Georgia Bama from the Arithmetist. Newcago hits that same nerve with me, just like,
okay. So can I defend Newcago? Just give me, not that Newcago is good, because it's garbage, but Brandon isn't
Steelheart would think.
Yes,
of.
It's definitely something Steelheart would be like. It is Newcago, and all his toadies are sort of looking at each other like, okay, Newcago.
Yeah, are you going to argue with the boss? I'm not going to argue with the boss.
We're on this. This is everyone loves this. This is great, and this is how you get. This is pod racing.
Oh boy. But yeah, okay. So Steelheart, the big man. Lots of superpowers. Like he's got the big suite.
Yeah, he got flight,
super strength, invulnerability, flight, wind control, steel transversion, energy blasts, and eidetic memory. Apparently, at the end, we find out.
Oh, right. He says, "I remember everything."
Yeah. I remember everybody.
To which Dave's just like, "Do you remember that Newcago sucks as a name?" And then he pulls the trigger.
Jordan is writing a Robot Chicken episode.
Basically, at this point.
How it should have ended.
Okay, so that's Steelheart. Conflux is an interesting one.
Yeah, because he starts out as an unknown, and he's the one they find in the trunk, right? Yeah,
which is not what they expected.
Well, he's the only pleasant epic they've ever really found.
I know, and like. The poor guy, like when he talks about it, he's like, "Oh yeah, I found out about my powers because I electrocuted my wife because I was trying to make a Nuka burrito in the microwave." And it's just like, oh.
Well, and the thing is, though, because he's been captured and forced to give away his powers since almost the very beginning, he's never really lived as an epic. Yeah, he has these abilities, and so he hasn't actually experienced much of this rage that happens because he's giving it away, which dilutes the mind poison, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Conflux. The concept that he's able to like supercharge batteries so that they can actually contain more than they normally could, it feels like. It plays into the whole concept of these epics breaking physics. Like, it's not just they have these abilities that work, because like with Mistborn and all of Brandon's magic systems, there's a new rule that's been added. Mm-hmm. With this, it feels like it's just nope, no rules.
They get to break the rules.
Well, there are rules, but it's what the rules are different person to person to person.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's consistently inconsistent. They all show the same disregard for both the laws of nature and physics.
And human life. But,
yeah. But yeah, it's just an interesting concept. They find the poor guy stuffed in a trunk.
Yep.
And he's just like, I was being...
He's like, this is my second set of people in charge of me.
Yeah, the poor guy is just traumatized, and he's actually a very pleasant person. I do like the concept of if I stop, giving abilities to everybody, then Steelheart's going to be mad. He's like, well, the other option is we could kill you. It gives us the same effect. And he's like, okay, that might be an actual reasonable excuse.
Yeah.
Because they kill me, they still wouldn't get the powers.
Yeah.
So.
No, and he sees the reasonableness of the situation. That it sucks to be him. He understands that part of the entire equation.
He's probably had a lot of time to sit there and go, yeah, my life sucks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get a lot of time to think when you're stuffed in the trunk of a car. It's also what's interesting about it is they still play up like Conflux is
so powerful.
Well, and he's part of the crew. And the fact that they've had this entire charade going on for years, and it's like, oh, what's it going to be when we face Conflux? And it's like, what's going to be is a pleasant conversation with someone who understands everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm. And a fight with Night Wielder before that, but
Right. Speaking of, Night Wielder appearing out of the ground and just coming at them is one of the most horrifying images. Like, I just imagine, like, the vampire jump.
It just doesn't feel very fun whenever someone has no clip mode on.
Mm-hmm.
So side story, I got to play a character in an RPG that basically had, like, going through the floor's powers, and it was so fun. It was very OP, but it was so fun.
Yeah.
So I was reading Night Wielder and going, oh, I got to do things like that. It was great.
It's just good for Night Wielder that the bottoms of his feet are tangible if he wants them to be. Because otherwise he'd just keep falling forever.
Never.
It falls under the necessary secondary superpowers trope.
Yeah. Yep.
That was sorry. This is back to because we're talking about the various people right now. That was something I really liked when David was describing all the various epics. And how, Steelheart, it's this, it's a grocery list of superpowers. But Night Wielder, he only has 2. But they're a doozy of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It's how you use them.
Yeah. And then there was like Faultline, who actually doesn't have any high epic powers, but she has a really good synergy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that makes her a high epic in their reckoning.
That said,
she just didn't have the vulnerability.
Why on earth would she take on? But as soon as I heard that she took on,
it's like he can fly.
But yeah, I was just like, what are you expecting?
He's invulnerable. He can fly. He's super strong.
If you've ever played an RPG, like a video game RPG, enemies that cast Quake, you cast Float on yourself and you're immune. That's how it works.
Do you think like the fight broke out and like Steelheart was sort of like just like floating above the ground and sort of just like looking a little embarrassed at her, like one of my left hands. Like this doesn't look good on me. Like even if I wasn't pissed at you, I have to kill you on principle now.
Well, I thought David made a comment about how she challenged him, and so it was like a formal challenge. So he knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I just think he'd just be more pissed that you think you can step to this? Like, I'm insulted that you think you can step to this.
You come into my house. And then, okay, our last member of Team Steelheart is Firefight, who we spend 90% of the book thinking he's something he isn't.
Yeah.
First off.
And David being vague.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Or just these talk, oh, he's not what it thinks. And then like they sort of every time it gets brought up, they get sidetracked into something else. And it's just like, would you people take your Adderall? Focus.
Finish the sentence.
No, but he, big reveal at the end is it's Megan. Which again, I love the concept.
Didn't call that plot twist.
The mole who is unbeknownst to them under the influence of a different force, and by sneaking in to infiltrate them, insulates themselves from that force unknowingly.
Yeah, she was being poisoned by friendship.
And then of course she has the recording
of David
confessing his love. Big, just sappy, gushy scene. And David, he's like realizes he's seeing it and he's thinking, oh no. But it affects her. Because he says things like it's not just a matter of, oh, I love you. He's like, I don't know what it is that I feel, but whatever it is, thank you for making me feel something different.
Yeah, and
I think that's a cool twist on the trope.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, and you carried my body that whole way, because it sounds like it was a terrible trek to get to a safer zone, and he's already thrashed and beat up, and she's dying, basically almost dead. And when she hasn't been using her power, she has more of her humanity, so she would feel more affected by it.
And with that amnesia as well, she's got sort of she's in a more innocent state.
Yeah.
Yeah, reincarnation as a prime invulnerability just isn't as useful as healing, force fields, plane invulnerability. Very useful.
Because a lot of people, it's like you have to figure out how to kill them. You can kill her. She still comes back.
And she might remember you, and that might be bad.
Yeah.
No,
it's just interesting that she generates a new body somewhere nearby, though. That's just...
It's wherever she slept in her bed most recently, I believe.
No, she's not in Minecraft. Coming soon, Megancraft.
No.
But yeah, it's an interesting concept. So let's talk about, are there any scenes that really stood out to you? Just
I liked
settings or
I liked the whole Soldiers Field fight. I liked when she was listening to the recording, like we said. I liked in the power station where she I think it was there where she started laughing at his jokes. Like she actually started to do it, or I can't remember if it was somewhere else. But
I think
when
it was
she was starting to
around
warm up to him. It was around there. Yeah, but just...
Yeah, because she was
the,
warming up
the elevator,
to him.
The elevator scene was fun, too.
Yeah. I loved Diamond's lair.
That was... I loved that.
Because it's just like, you get to see all the pretty toys.
And like David's... he goes with... It's Abraham and who else? Is it Cody? It's not
It's
Cody.
Megan.
Abraham and Megan.
And they're all like cool and calm, and he's like, oh my goodness. He's just looking around. He can't contain himself.
I mean, he worked in a weapons factory.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and what I like is when he shows up, to sell Abraham's gun, and Night Wielder's very skeptical.
Tell me about this gun.
And he goes into the whole thing about the gun. He's like, tell me about this gun.
What?
And
that one.
And Night Wielder sort of, all right. He seems like he belongs. I'm satisfied.
Legit.
It's like, okay, it's weird, but yeah, like he knows his stuff, so all right.
Yep.
No,
I love that setting, and also the fact that that's where he gets the pin and the little explosive erasers,
all the little caps, blasting.
And it's just like, because it seems like a very, very small thing, but it ends up being the linchpin.
Literal, the firing pin.
No.
I'd forgotten actually that was I knew that the bullet reflected or something that somehow Steelheart did it, but I was like, did it bounce off of something? And I couldn't remember what it was, and then I was like, oh, the blasting cap inside. Like I just didn't remember that little detail until it's right there.
Speaking of that detail, Steelheart's weakness, it makes so much sense, And you go back and suddenly you start to understand why he uses some of the tactics he does. Because he is ruling with an iron fist. Like, he's got a reign of terror for a completely different reason than others would. Because if he has a reign of terror, that's what makes him invulnerable. Then he's safe.
Yeah. Yep.
So I want to touch on that real quick, but then actually kind of go backwards after that. The thing that's interesting, because if you look any sort of tyrant's guide to the universe, typically good rulers, it's more important to be consistent than it is to be anything else. Like, people can adjust to pure tyranny as long as the tyranny is consistently done. Because if they know what the rules are, people can play by the rules. What gets people on edge is when the rules are inconsistent and they
shift suddenly.
Yeah, and they don't know what the rules are. And so he's instituted a rule that is mostly consistent, but still every once in a while slaughter a building just out of nowhere, no good reason. Just so you never feel safe.
Yeah.
It's brilliant as far as what his goal is. It's terrible because it creates the very thing he's, doesn't want, which are rebels.
Well, and it really speaks to the mindset of David's father in the prologue.
Yeah.
Because he can only be wounded by someone who doesn't fear him. And it's clear it's not just they feel they could take him. Because Death Point thinks, I can take him out. But he feared him enough that he couldn't damage him.
Well, yeah, after the thing that reduces everyone else to bones, I think he compares it to like a cigarette going out.
Yeah. Oh. Well, because it burns his clothes a little bit.
Just sort of like, and then he calls him Little Epic.
But
just so insulting.
This is a guy who all he has to do is point at somebody and they die. He's gotten used to this, and he's
the man with the golden gun.
He's pretty confident that he can take Steelheart out with this, and it doesn't work. So just that little amount of fear is enough to make Steelheart invulnerable. David's father had absolutely no fear of him. Like, it's because he's thinking this guy is the hero who's come to save us. This guy is on our side. Not an ounce of fear, which is why the bullet grazes him, and it's just like it says a lot about who he was.
So in the book itself, the first read through of it, I'm sure I wasn't the only one who's sitting here trying to figure out what is the weakness.
Well, of course.
The entire time they kept going through everything. I was convinced I had it, and it drove me nuts because they never discussed it. I was convinced it can't be aimed at him. That it has to be.
Well, they talked about the crossfire.
Well, they did, and that was the thing. The entire book, up until the fight at Soldier Field, they had never mentioned the possibility.
Yes, they had.
And no, they hadn't. I double checked in 2 different read throughs now. They didn't. So the entire time I'm like, it's got to be a bullet that wasn't aimed for him. It's got to be a bullet that isn't aimed for him. Come on, it's what it is. It's what it is. Why aren't you guys discussing it? It's obvious. And then it's like, we tried to get him in a crossfire. Oh,
it didn't work.
No, well, I'm stumped.
I'm always terrible at guessing those things, and even like looking on second read-throughs and things, I'm like, oh yeah, there were the hints. But I'm usually so caught up in everything else that I don't stop and analyze it as much. So I had no idea what it was, but it felt like this read-through. I was kind of like, oh guys, just think about who shot the gun. Think about, and they're like, oh, maybe it was the age of the guy. Maybe it was this, and all these different things. And
they're thinking maybe there's a substance, like a kryptonite type situation.
And they even like get
Never
all the
mentions
stuff out of
the word
vault.
kryptonite.
Yes.
Well, the interesting thing is, they're like, if we go to the vault and we find something, it was like, it's been turned to steel though. So whatever it was, if it was a certain something, a certain substance, it's not that substance anymore.
It's interesting that steel, though, insulates from the effect of his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just that's an interesting touch to throw in.
It makes it feel like an almost electromagnetic power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they repulse.
It feels like a Faraday cage, and so it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things that So valuables would have been one of the few things that a lot of people got to keep because you would keep them in a safe box of some kind. And so it's just one of those things.
And is anything that a human is holding or whatever, a living thing is holding or whatever, it doesn't get changed to. Because like if something is a lot, yeah, because like if you were holding something, it wouldn't affect you. It wouldn't turn everybody's clothes to steel. Clothes that were not being worn by people,
got turned
to steel, which I would hate that because it means you have to find a whole new wardrobe. And
think about how hard to clean out that closet suddenly would be. Everything is rigid.
Marie Kondo would be furious.
Oh my!
This does not spark joy.
Joy.
Sparks. That's where it came from.
Sparks.
That's where the swear word came from.
So do either of you know where the word slaunts came from?
No.
I went looking for this because every other Brandon fake swear word makes sense except in this book. Sparks? What does that have to do with anything? I don't know. I couldn't find jack squat on Sparks. But slaunts, I'm like, okay, he's got to have something for slaunts. So apparently, dealing with Moshe, who is Jewish, he became really enamored with Yiddish words. So he came up with a fake Yiddish word in slaunts. And he's like, I don't know, I just thought it might sort of take off.
That's kind of how, it has that sort of feel to it.
Yeah, and so that's what it was. It's a fake Yiddish word. But still no explanation on Sparks, and this bothers me. Like it only bothers me because literally in every other one of his universes, what they're swearing makes sense given the world.
It's tied in, yeah.
Like Calamity when they yell that. Okay, yeah, I get it.
They say Calamity all the time, yeah.
By the way, one of the things that's kind of fun to me, first off, there is a board game called The Reckoners based on the series, and it's a really good cooperative board game. They have multiple difficulty levels that you can set it to. The most difficult one is Sparks. Just like, okay, I like that. That's a nice little touch.
Okay.
If you like the epic stuff where it like breaks down possible weaknesses and stuff, it's also a really fun board game because there's an entire source book for it that just has all these all these epics, and so you learn about some epics that you hear about in the book that show up in the source book, and one of them is clearly Brandon Sanderson. And it's just like you see, like that's Brandon. Brandon made himself someone we can kill in this board game.
Yeah, Sandman, I think Sandstorm.
It was but he had sand powers that somehow rewrite reality, and to which it's just like, cool. Which it's like, yeah, he's a writer. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to think of what evil Brandon Sanderson could do to someone. We've already seen what he does to characters. I don't want him to try in real life. I mean, you saw what he put David through in this book, right?
Yeah.
What is that man capable of? It's a good thing we have his books to distract him.
Well, and I think the epic number in it is actually 16.
Oh, I think you're right. I think it is.
And the character is from Nebraska, from Brandon's hometown.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and he's got the suit coat with the T-shirt. It's
it's absolutely him.
It's just Brandon.
It's a nice little touch. Oh man.
But if you're looking for a cooperative board game, that's a fun one.
It really is a great one. I've actually got a review up of. I'll talk about that a little bit later though. But yeah, that final confrontation is just really one of the things I like about it is that they make it everything goes wrong.
Oh yeah.
Like absolutely everything that can go wrong goes wrong to the point where it feels like it's over. A lot of times, yes, the Avalanche will get the characters into a rough place. This one gets them into absolute loss. Like it's over.
Because Cody's injured, Abraham's pulling him out. Tia's with the copter trying to get to them. Prof is out.
Prof has been completely pulverized. And
he's like given his all, out in the field and stuff. And then David was scared out of his area before he could even really do much. And they're just running and running ragged. And
well, I mean, David says to Tia, "Go. Prof is dead, and so am I."
Yeah, it's like save what you can. You know, I'm gonna try what I can here, but well, you know,
I think that this is one of the best ways that Brandon has pulled that just feeling of abject loss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it's something. It's something that I think can only happen in a first book of a series as well, where we don't know what the rules of what could happen. Like Game of Thrones, the reason it's so shocking that Sean Bean dies, which is hilarious because it should never be shocking if Sean Bean dies, is because we don't realize that this is the type of universe you're in. It feels like it's a standard fantasy, low fantasy universe until that moment. And then oh, this is, that's going to be tough for him to walk off. What with the head rolling. And so it's just, we don't know, like this could be, total party wipe, here at this book. And
well, particularly because you're reading a YA book and you're not thinking it's going to get this dark. And so it's a gut punch.
And it's first person, so it's much more focused and everything is tinted by what David is feeling.
That's, as an aside, someone, I saw a word of Brandon, asked him, like, what do you feel is the difference between your YA and your normal books? Because it doesn't seem to be violence. And it's like, no, I've never seen you murder an infant in the middle of one of your fantasy books. And he just starts out his YA book with baby murder. And so he's like, no, it's his view of what makes it YA is the viewpoints. For YA, he sticks to single viewpoints as much as he can.
Well, in first person, he had. Even.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, with Skyward and stuff, it's all first person, right?
Skyward, The Reckoners, and even Alcatraz. They're all first person.
Yeah, that's right.
The Rhythmatist is a single viewpoint. Which is just, it's all Joel.
Yes, that's true, yeah. And that's sort of YA, right?
No, it's definitely YA.
Yeah, it's like...
It's secret Cosmere book. We all know this.
Former Cosmere book.
Oh,
guys, this is a good one. I'm looking forward to actually talking about the rest. Should we just continue in the Reckoners and just hit all 3 books in a row?
They're fun reads.
Okay, I think that's what we'll do. So that'll be.
And I might find cosplayer friends and be like, hey, can I use your picture that looks similar to this person and use that? So maybe we'll have fun pictures online too. That'll be cool.
Cool. I like
Instead of just me doing the book, because I was really tempted to ask one of my cosplayer friends he's a big military guy and he does some superheroes, and I was tempted to be like, hey, can I like use your picture for Steelheart or or whatever else, but we'll see. I will work on that.
Awesome. This live SICS planning session has been brought to you by Diet Cola.
Except
Soda.
don't drink that.
What?
Soda.
I don't like cola.
Cola.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I don't
those
like
who don't
soda.
know, soda.
I don't like cola.
Soda is the bland name product of soda in the DC animated universe.
Oh my goodness!
And it was like a one-off thing in the Batman animated series, and it somehow just like kept showing up until like Flash has like a sponsorship deal with them or something, and later in Justice League.
Yeah. So we'll probably also touch a little bit on mitosis next week, or next episode, not next week. Because it's very, very short. It cannot stand on its own for a full episode, I don't think. But I think we'll just sort of, because it does sort of have a little bit of a lead into Firefight.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we love hearing from our listeners, so keep on sending in questions. You can ask us about the Cosmere or other Brandon Sanderson books, or drop us ideas for topics you'd like us to discuss during the show. While you're at it, we do want to hear your feedback. We really want to hear how you think we're doing, and we'd love to hear, in addition to that, any interesting theories you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere, anything. We want to hear from you. We love it. Send any questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and we could read that as a part of the show. We do have a P.O. Box as well. That's the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. We've got our own personal projects in addition to what we do here. So, Jordan, why don't you tell us where we can find you outside the show?
Twitch.tv/Splicestream. That's Splicestream like ice cream, but not. And You see, it's a bad metaphor. The thing we're focusing on right now, we just moved our Minecraft server, and Tuesdays are the big day to show up. Tower Tuesdays, if you play Smash, just show up, fight against Amiibo, see how far you can climb. I'm actually having a blast with it, and if you play Smash, just show up, try it out. I think you're going to like it.
Ooh. Well, cool. How about you, Amy? Where can we find you? What have you been up to? What's new?
So my Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. My Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay. And my sad website is www.coincidencecosplay.com. And my Etsy is etsy.com/shop/coincidencecosplay. And my husband's website is deckplan.io if you like Magic the Gathering. I was on vacation, which is part of why the schedule was wonky. So sorry about that, guys. And I have finally started working on all of my 3D prints. I got this one from Uncle Jesse for real. I'm sorry, audio people. I'm just a visual person. But this is Loki's horns. I have that, and I have the Mandalorian pistol that I'm working on. I just bought like the cheapo one, and I'm working on that. And then I have some daggers that are from Skyrim, actually, but I'm just going to use them for my D&D rogue. So
Did you say Uncle Jesse for real? Like,
yeah, that's the name he uses.
Like John Stamos, or
no?
Oh,
he's really cool.
I didn't know.
Then he's Uncle Jesse for fake.
Anyway, but no, he's a really cool guy. He does a lot about 3D printing and stuff. So if you want to learn about it, he's a good person to look up on YouTube.
Awesome.
He's really personal and fun and does good short, quick, and longer videos too. But that's sort of what I've been up to. My kids are going into school, so I will hopefully have more time to do things. But I still have to take it easy on my freaking tendons in my arm, so I have to just balance that out. But that's what I've been doing. So hopefully I will post more regularly since I can actually do stuff now. So yeah.
Cool. I have another podcast I host with my friend Dylan. We talk about board games. It's called The Innkeeper's Table, and we come out with new episodes every Friday morning. Our most recent episode, it was a two-part recap of End of Summer SaltCon from this year. SaltCon is a big board game convention in the area. They had a smaller one at the end of the summer. So we did a recap of that where we talked about a lot of the different games that we played and just how things went down. Our next episode is a spotlight on a new game that just came out. It was a huge Kickstarter. It's called Ankh, which is the third game in a trilogy of games about different pantheons. First one is Blood Rage. It's about the Norse pantheon. The second one was Rising Sun, which is about Japanese mythology. And it's sort of a war game kind of based on diplomacy. And this one is Ankh, so clearly about Egyptian gods and goddesses. A lot of fun. So that's going to be a really cool episode. I've also got several board game reviews over on www.innkeeperstable.com, including one on The Reckoners. So make sure to go check that out because that game is a lot of fun, and it's just for a game that's based on an intellectual property, it's a really, really good one. I also occasionally post about games on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Innkeeper's Table, as well as at Innkeeper's Table Podcast. So yeah, check those out. For those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become patrons, we would love it if you would let your friends know about the show. Spread the word. Let people know about it. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. And if you'd be willing to toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we would love that as well. Final thoughts, guys.
Sparks, this is a good book.
Gifting as a concept, just as a power, that's not something I've seen anywhere else, and I really like it. And also, just we didn't really talk about the fortuity himself that much. I just find it interesting that his weakness is women he's attracted to, yet he still goes out. He literally flirts with danger. And
it seems fitting for his character that he's like all about fortune and stuff. Yeah,
I'm not even mad.
You shouldn't be, because that's just that's a handcrafted joke right there for you.
Well done. Well done. No, I love this concept. I'm excited to dive deeper into the Reckoner's world. Special thanks to our patron producer, Mim's Laundry Service. We air out your dirty laundry so your friends and neighbors can't. In addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/innkeeperstable every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions for the show, email them to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. So next week, we're going to continue in the Reckoner series, or not next week, next episode, discussing Firefight, Book 2. And we'll also have a section dedicated to Mitosis, which is the short story between Steelheart and Firefight. So join us for the live discussion on that on August 30th, 2021, back at 7:30 p.m. Wow, I can talk. I good words, guys. So join us for that on August 30th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember,
there's always another
another secret.